Lofoten is an island archipelago north of the Arctic Circle, north of Iceland and north of anywhere in Alaska.
Okay, that's it. That's the roundhouse. It's a reconstruction, but this is where about 40 years ago, a farmer dug up the remains of what turned out to be the longest Viking roundhouse ever found. So this area had really early Viking settlements?
It was actually before Viking Age. There are some grave mounds and also graves here that date before the Viking Age.
Like what years?
We think that the first settlement here was about the 3rd century, so 200 AD.
So what was found here?
So basically, throughout the centuries, this land was farmed. So throughout the years, the centuries, it was been plowed and like flattened. So what was probably the remains of the original house has been flattened and flattened. So basically you could see something was there. Mm-hmm. Everyone knew that something was here. But by accident in 1981, the farmer was plowing here and found shards of glass and ceramic. And there were particularly unique findings here because it was a very far location in the north of Scandinavia, and before that they didn't know that there was such a powerful and rich chieftain up here.
And how far north are we?
We are over the
Arctic Circle?
Yes.
We're above the Arctic Circle?
Yes.
What is a longhouse?
So a longhouse is a building of a chieftain. We see that the house was divided into 5 rooms. We have the living quarters on the west side. We have the main entrance here. Then we have the hall, the feast hall. We have the storage room, and at the end where the animals were stored. The walls are turf. So there is this construction, there is the turf that protects an inner wall. This is about 1.2 meters between one wall to the other, because there is basically a storage between the 2 walls, and this also is an insulation for the winter and cold weather.
So here you see this would be the main dining hall?
Yes.
And so you see the fire here. This would be the cooking?
Yeah, you cooking and also keep it warm. But this is very small. It was almost the same length as the whole room, because it was supposed to keep warm for all the space.
So I'm mesmerized by the fact that it's an open fire, so there will be smoke.
Yeah,
and
it was a lot of smoke.
A lot of smoke, but in this case, it's not that we are coughing here.
Yeah, but also because we are using now a gas one.
But probably their mortality rate was also related to the fact that they were just exposed to constant smoke.
Constant smoke. You should think that it was in all these rooms, like smoke continuously.
Okay, so this is a very wealthy chief, considering how big this is, as long as a football field. This longer structure was divided in different areas, and a whole clan would inhabit this place.
In the chieftain house, it was mainly the chieftain and his family that was living here, but the servants and especially the slaves were living with the animals. But this was also a portable bed. It could be assembled and disassembled. This is a reconstruction. The reconstruction has been based on stave churches. This is 9 to 12 meters high. And with the shingled roof, then it's possible to have it this tall.
It's a sunken structure, which means it's going to perform decently on extreme weather. Then you have very thick walls. The bottom structure is partially sunken, so the temperature is going to be constant all year round. You can see it here. So you have reinforcement walls that are basically encasing the structure, and the structure is going to go a little bit under the level of the soil outside.
I mean, the exterior to the exterior, how did they protect it?
It's protected with tar, so it's tarred, so it's also waterproof.
So they waterproofed the wooden shingles,
Yes.
so snow wouldn't rot the wood.
Yeah, it's the same technique you use also on the Viking ships. So you tar the Viking ship.
So in a way, they're longhouses where they use techniques for their vessels and their houses.
Yeah, they were very good woodworkers, especially also building boats that were long and fast, but also quite light.
So we are walking towards the Viking vessel replica. This is probably the walk that the chieftain would do from the log house to the place where they would take the vessel to go fishing and to even sail all the way to Iceland, the British Islands, to travel across the North Atlantic all the way to North America and the Mediterranean and beyond.
The ship is a replica of ship found in Gokstad in south of Norway, but it's a scaled down copy. Original ship is much bigger. It's around 24 meters, while that one is 14.5. Today we have no wind, so we row. If we have wind, then we sail. Sailing in general is more fun.
These are large oars.
Yeah, those are pretty heavy oars, but that's how they sailed back then. I mean, they're heavy, but they're oars, not paddles, so they kind of balance.
So it's very similar to rowing, modern day rowing, right? Like modern day crew.
Yeah, it is rowing. The difference is in modern rowing you have a piece on the boat that moves and holds the oars in place. Here, if you don't have good technique, the oar slides and moves around. Originally, on the big ship, because it's so much bigger, the sides are bigger and you have a hole drilled through. But you still need to control how far out the oar is.
So what's a part of the type of vessel they use with the success of the Norse peoples as sailors and discoverers of places that were really far away?
The iron nails. Because of them, you can build way bigger ships. All those planks are overlapping, and then you drill a hole, put a nail through, put the end cap, cut the nail, and then use hammer to flatten the end of the nail. That creates very strong rivet that holds the planks together while being very flexible. In general, Viking ships are very flexible, especially the long ones. When you see them at sea crossing waves, the whole thing twists and turns. And roughly when the Viking Era starts, we start finding bigger ships built with iron nails connecting the planks. Before Viking Era, the ships were connected with wooden pegs or were stitched together with pine roots, and such construction couldn't be as big and seaworthy. We also noticed bigger and bigger structure that holds the mast and the sail. So the boats pre-Viking Era were mostly rowing with occasional sail. And through the Viking Era, they get more and more sailing ships.
How about clothing? Is your clothing now representative of
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's wool, or what do you?
Yeah, I have all wool today. Wool, leather shoes.
You have the leather clothes on, no?
Yeah,
That's the,
he
yeah,
does.
yeah.
I actually made them.
Oh, did you really? Wow. Okay.
I have some complaints. You need to make it tighter now.
Tighter, you lost some weight. Very good, very good. It doesn't matter of moving the buttons.
I know.
All that rowing, you're now getting in better shape.
More than sailing. We don't do anything when we row. It's for tourists.
The sailing, right.
And you see how the oars are now? I will let them know when we come back and dock to take the oars up on the rail there. It goes for this side. Up on the rail and all the way in. So you can start taking them out. Have them. Don't put them in the water yet.
It's quite heavy boat. Together with all the passengers, equipment, ballast, it weighs around 13 tons. And sailing in general is better. Like rowing here with tourists, the most we got, it was around 3 knots. Sailing, we got over 14. Okay, off they go.
And you see on the side, is that the rudder, I guess, for steering?
Yes. Yeah. That's in pretty much any language, European language. You have starboard and port side. It came from styrbord, which means the side on which you have the steer.
So it's a Viking era sort of
Yeah, it's evolutionary step in boat building. At first there was big canoe with someone holding a paddle. Then they find out then you can tie the paddle to the side and then it's easier to steer. And then they find out that, well, if we move it to the middle in the back, since it's tied in anyway, it's more efficient. But that's already after Viking era.
This kind of boat could have gone how far?
It all depends on the size. That boat, because it's scaled down, it's very low to the water.
Okay.
Original was around that much higher, and that would be big enough to cross Atlantic, to go to Iceland through Faroe Islands, then to Greenland and to America. That one would be good for coastal sailing, maybe crossing some smaller seas. Going to England shouldn't be a problem. It's only 2, 3, 4 days. You have good wind, and you can kind of predict weather that far ahead. You just don't want to be caught in a storm. To Iceland, week or 2, that's a bit much. So that small boat is also a replica, and that one is not scaled down in any way.
Oh,
That's just how it was. So in the same grave where we found the big ship, we also found 3 smaller boats. Because of their shape, because of the high bow and aft, you can cut through waves quite nicely. Waves from the side is a problem, but waves usually come from the same side from which the wind is coming. So you tilt the boat and you have slightly higher board on that side.
So we were told that they were using also tar.
Yes. So the boat is black because every year we take it out of the water, we clean it, and we paint it with mixture of tar and oil. And we are using linseed oil. Originally it would be most likely fish oil, but we kind of avoid that smell.
Yeah.
A couple of things. First, all the ballast is inside the boat. We have maybe 200 kilo of stones. In the big boat we have 3.5 tons of rocks. All Viking ships are able to sail and to row. Here we have 10 oars. On the larger one we have 24. On full-size boat it was 32. And around this lake we found over 20 remains of boathouses, and 4 of them as big as the one we have here. And that one is big for the full-size 24-meter long boat.
Which is where they'd build the boat, where they would fix.
Build, fix, store. Right now, small boat that is replica of the smallest one, that one is mine. The first one is not a Viking boat, it's a boat that they would use here maybe 100 years ago, but it looks almost the same. And the small one is a Viking boat based on finds from Gokstad.
So this is your boat?
Yeah, I made it. I bought the nails, but all the elements that are not flat were carved just using Viking era tools. Of course, I made a lot of mistakes, but it's my first boat.
Yeah.
The best would be to work with green wood, because then it's still flexible, it's less prone to cracking. I left mine to lie a bit too long. I should have soaked it or steamed it, so I have some cracks, like here, where it's not supposed to be. But there is nothing that caulking cannot patch.
How does it sail?
It's very fun to sail, but very unstable. Like that small, you wouldn't use for long distances anyways.
What's your sail made of? Is this wool?
Yeah, it's wool. You can grow linen here in Norway, but it doesn't grow as tall and strong. The sail from 13th century, they're all woolen, and it works. We are used to wool that is thick, but you can spin wool very thin. We have one fabric from Viking era that is woven with 60 threads per centimeter. That fabric has maybe 10, 12 threads per centimeter, so like 5 times thinner than that. And you can treat the sail with fat to make it more waterproof and also more airtight, so less air goes through.
What's the mast made of?
That one is made of spruce. Spruce or pine is what you're looking for, because it grows very straight and it's quite flexible.
We were explained that there are sagas that explain that people from Lofoten would just sail all the way to Iceland.
Yes, we found a book called Landnama book that describes all the most important settlers that came to Iceland during Viking era. And in that landnama book, there is mention of Olaf Tvenenbruni, who came from island of Lofotr, which is this island. And Olaf got the biggest farm in Iceland, in whole Iceland.
Wow. Would this have been an interesting jumping off point for sailing at that time? I mean, because we're very far north.
Yeah, we are actually further north than Iceland. So if you want to go Iceland, you first need to sail south. But because we have Gulf Stream, we have the warm current coming from Gulf of Mexico, it's relatively mild here. Vestvågøya, because it's so flat and surrounded by mountains from both sides, and because of the warm current, is the place with the most developed agriculture in whole north of Norway. And it has been the same for thousands of years. It's just a good place to live. And then you have plentiful of fish in the sea. So it's just a good place where you can amass wealth.
You can see that it's hanging stockfish. It was particularly important for the economy and the trade here.
So during the winter, I mean, the days become almost no light. So how do the people survive? Fishing?
Fishing was carried out probably in February, March, April, at least for the codfish, and then becomes stockfish through a drying process.
Okay.
This is not salted, so it becomes dried because of this special climatic condition that we have in Lofoten.
What is that? How do they do that?
It's the cod, they are hanged outside. And since the temperature here is not too cold but not too warm, and also in the spring it's quite dry, so they are the perfect condition to dry the codfish and get this amazing product that can last more than 10 years.
More than 10 years, wow.
Yeah, so in order to eat it, you have to rehydrate, yeah, maybe 10-20 days in water.
And no salting, no smoking?
No.
Amazing. So in here you would have seen a storeroom with...
Yeah, we have flatbread, we have also barley.
So the flatbread they were able to store that long periods?
Yes, it's not fermented, so it doesn't grow with yeast. They also had meat, but meat was only for special occasions.
That is interesting to see.
Would this be a traditional food?
Yeah, but in the Viking Age, the lamb meat would be really expensive to make. So it was more normal to have like just the carrots and vegetables. And we also have byggryn på engelsk. Barley. And they didn't have a lot of spices back then, but we have spices in it now, so it's better.
So the vertical loom and all the textile handicraft was essential during the Viking Age. Each thread is hanged that way. This is an old technique. The modern loom is horizontal, so you do this movement and the threads are put horizontally. While here, you are standing all the time and you do this movement up, up. So it was quite a workout.
You start with the wool after it's being washed. You put it on the comb. What you're trying to do is to get it fluffy and also try to get the hairs in the same direction. So then you can start with the spinning. And you want it fluffy so that it's easy to pull. Here you see. And then now that it's a bit fluffy, you can pull it pretty easily. So then you can have the right thickness of the thread you want. So then I spin it here, and then I can let loose, and then it becomes a thread. So I can make it even thinner. Oh, a bit too thin.
The leather was also very important because it's also waterproof.
Yes.
And the tanning process is also a quite long process.
Right now I'm softening the skin. So as you see here, it's still a bit stiff. And here, for example, it starts being very, very smooth and you can roll it. So it starts being a lot better.
So the first part of the process would be...
First, you use this big bin over there. And you remove on the fur there is a lot of fat and skins and muscle. And so you scrape it out. And then you clean it on the water. So you use a lake over there, you clean it, you put it on a frame, and then you can pour the bark tea.
What kind of bark?
Here it's birch. I'm only using things from the area. And so you can see here, it's like very brown. And if you pour it on the skin, what we look from the bark is like we boil it, and then the tannin, it's very small particles that links the fiber into the skins. And so we collect these tannins, and then we try to impregnate the skins with it. So the tannin go inside, and then when it dry, you can put more layers and more layers. That's how you obtain leather.
Because normally tanning is a very, chemical process and it's problematic. But this would have been done with only bark and water.
Yes. So basically here what you need is a skin and a tree. And then from the tree you obtain the bark, so you obtain the tannin. And it's kind of a magical process because you have like a dead skin, right? Yeah. Which would have rot in like maybe 2 or 3 days if you don't care about it. You leave it outside, it will rot. But then because of this process, you take some living particles that are on a tree, still a living tree, and then you include them. And so you take the property of the tree inside your skins. And this will make your skin stronger, durable, and will protect it from rotting, moisture, and bacteria activity.
And what is the chemical in the tree bark that's working?
It's tannin.
It's tannin, a tannin, okay.
Yeah, tannin is like, most people know about it because of wine, but we don't use it, the one from the wine, because it's not the same. You can use a lot of different tannin, but they don't have all the same concentration. And some can be better, for example, for making your skin softer or making your skin more waterproof. But then it's also a condition of when you collect the bark. But you can try with the trees that are around your area and it might work. You can also taste it. If you taste it, you will feel on your tongue that it dry a lot your tongue, and if it dry it nicely, and if you want to split it and don't want to drink it, then it's a good bark.
So how many times do you do this on one skin? You have to do several?
Yeah, at least 10.
Because you're looking for a certain kind of...
Well, it depends. For example, this one is supple enough if you want to make like a small glove, for example. Because if you make a glove after when you use it, it will continue the softening part, right?
Right.
So this part will be super soft and this one will be a bit stronger, which is nice for a glove, for example. This can be used to make belt. This can be used to make sole.
Oh, the sole of a shoe?
Yeah, for example, because it's much bigger and stronger. But this one I want to soften it a lot more. So for example, I can make like a jacket or something.
And so the softening happens both with your physical manipulating of the leather and then also with the tannin? Both are softening?
Yes, both of them.
But tannin does some of the work for you.
Tannin do a lot of work. The frame does a lot of work also because it stretch the skins. Because when it dry, it shrink. Here it's always tight. Then the work is done for me. Otherwise, you can work without a frame, but you have to open it with this kind of tools. You have to open the skins like this every time you want to put more bark, which is a bit exhausting, but it's still working. Most of the tannery are chemical tannery now that use a lot of chemicals. Here in this museum, we are doing experimental archaeology, which means that we start from very scratch. So I have very, very few tools. It does give me like a knife and an axe. And then I'm cutting trees over there. So I'm just using my environment. I made this one. I made this, I made the bin, I made those tools. This is the tools I've made also.
What's that, Jim?
So it's very simple, but this morning, because I knew I had to do these steps, so this tool allowed me to put a lot of pressure and to open skins. We are much less people doing it from the very scratch. Yeah, and it has more character. Yeah, you can see like the wounds on the skins, you can see a lot of its life.
So can you tell me what you're doing?
I'm making a new kind of basket, yeah, because usually I use wicker, but now I use willow tree, so that's a bit different technique, yeah. I need a shaving horse because I'm shaving branches of a tree. I have to split a branch, yeah. It takes time.
And precision, no? I mean, to just get it to not break and to just split like that.
Yeah. It's not as easy as it looks like.
It doesn't look easy.
Okay, and now I have to shave this branch. So, on a tool which is called shaving horse. So, it goes like this.
So willow is common around here? Is it a local material?
Yeah. Also birch. We can use also roots of tree, like spruce, pine, birch. That's my next project.
Was the wood dried first?
Yeah, and then I soak it in water. So I need a lot of wood band like this, wood tape.
So it'd been soaked in order to make it so it's not brittle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it will be a layer of a basket.
You have to get it down that thin.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. I have to shave and shave and shave.
And what are you working on here?
It will be a set of 2 bellows.
So you carve the wood as well as real? I mean, you do the whole thing?
Yeah, but I'm not familiar with wood. I'm a shoemaker, leather worker, so I must join wooden and leather part together. So. But of course, yeah, it's a pine or spruce planks and some sticks.
Do you enjoy this? Or does it get tiring? I mean, it's a lot of work.
No, it's, I must be focused because everything is sharp. Everything must be very precisely done. So.
So this is Yggdrasil. It's the tree of the world that connects all the 9 realms of the Old Norse mythology. It is mentioned in the sagas. This room was originally stables where animals were stored. And here we have a small workshop. This is a pole lathe, so you can make bowls. So you use your foot and you rotate this element and you shape the bowl with tools.
So it's called card weaving. So when I twist the cards, the process itself, so that here, and then just pull it back, and then you just pull the thread through. So this, you just do it back and forward. In the middle I have 2 different colors, so a green one and a blue one. So that's why here on the pattern changes from green to blue. And you can then put some of the cards forward, other ones backwards, so you get just the right color for the pattern you're making. When I take it forward, this thread goes down and then this goes up. This is a simple pattern. If you want to have the arrows change direction, so you can twist the cards in the opposite direction, so like this, instead of forward. Yeah.
And another very characteristic thing, those are very shallow draft boats. You can even see underneath there is nothing. That one is sitting maybe 20, 30 centimeters underwater. The big one around 60, 70 centimeter. So you can go on very shallow rivers. You can land on a beach without any trouble.
That would benefit them when they were doing
The raiding.
the raiding.
Yeah, you don't want to go to a harbor where everyone expects you. You're gonna land on a beach and just sneakily go in and use the element of surprise. Like, people from Scandinavia could not compete with armies on the south on even field. There is just not enough people living here. So they had to use the element of surprise, the superior sailing and maritime skills to be successful. And through the Viking era, as the countries in the south of Europe developed some ways of defending against Vikings, they had to send bigger and bigger armies. And by the end of the Viking era, the element of surprise was just gone. And at some point, the Viking era ended, and people who were doing Viking stuff had to find something else to do.